And we are live! Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live show for Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. I know my hosts are going to get mad at me for apologizing for the millionth time, but I have to apologize to everyone for taking so long to get this whole thing to put together. Long story short, there was a power outage in my area and it set everything back, but we got everyone together and it's all working and we're finally here. So I'm very, very sorry, but we're here to discuss Clockwork Angel now and I'm so excited. So we'll just go down the line and introduce ourselves. But as a quick note, if you're unaware, I'm hosting a year-long read-along for all of the books in the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. All of the information, the Facebook page we're running it through, the dates that we're having other live shows, all of that's in the description. And you can also follow my co-hosts in the description. But if you don't know, I'm Emma. This is my channel, emmmabooks. This is, I think it might be my fourth time reading Clockwork Angel, or else it's my third. I really don't remember. I have to say, though, this is definitely my absolute favorite reread of them all because when I first read Clockwork Angel, I really did not like it. I think I just, wasn't ready for there to be no Jace in the Shadowhunter world. And I was, very petty about it. But after this reread, I really enjoyed it. It did take me a while to get in and get comfortable again. But by the midway point of the story, I just loved it so much. So I'm so happy that I've had a more positive outlook on the book since. But now we'll move on to Sophie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sophie. I'm from Argentina, but I have a booktube channel that's in English. It's called Sophisticated Books. And I'm so excited to be here. This is my second time reading Clockwork Angel. I read it for the first time 2 years ago. But I was so surprised to realize this time around that I didn't remember a single thing about it. Nothing at all. None of the important plot points, none of the small details, nothing. I didn't remember anything. So it was like starting all over again. But I loved it so much.
That's so awesome. So we have Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I read Clockwork Angel a couple years ago for the first time and I absolutely hated it. It took me forever to get through, so much so that I have not read Clockwork Prince or Clockwork Princess yet, and I know I'm in for a surprise at the end. That's how much I didn't. I think I was just like you, Emma. I was so sucked into the world of the Mortal Instruments, and I didn't want to leave my characters. So it was really hard for me to get into, but I read it during the read-along and I loved it. It was such a different change. I don't know if it's because I'm older. I was a young teen when I read it. Now I'm 20, so it was a big difference. And I love the characters, and I'm so excited for the next two books. So.
And finally.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I have a Twitter. It's linked down below, but it's Carrie on Reading. This is my third time reading Clockwork Angel, and the first time I read it, I also hated it. But it was because I deeply loathed Will, and everybody else loved him, and so I was sure that I wasn't going to get to that point, so I didn't want to reread it. And then a year ago, I reread it, and I had slightly better thoughts. But rereading it this time, it's so much better. And I think it's with you guys getting pulled out of the Mortal Instruments world. And I think a big part of learning to like it was that I learned how to transition from the Mortal Instruments into the Dark Artifices. And so it helped better with the other transition. So, but I love it.
I'm so happy that I'm not the only one who hated Clockwork Angel because that's something I struggled with being alone in for so many years. But it's so nice to know that other people felt the same.
I didn't hate it the first time, but I definitely did think that it was slow and it took me a while to get into it. But this time, I in the first page, in the first chapter, I was already sucked in. And I think that's because I read it before once. But this experience was so much better than the first time.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear it. So just as a note for everyone watching, this live show is not going to spoil any of the other Shadowhunter books. We're just focusing on Clockwork Angel. But if we do need to revert back to the first 3 books of TMI, that's okay. Just like disclose that before talking about it. And so we're now going to be taking questions from the live chat. So if you want to contribute to the discussion, bring up any scenes, any characters, any moments, feel free to leave them in the chat and we will discuss them with you. But do any of you guys have anything that you particularly want to start off with?
I don't think I do. I thought I actually, like, because I had such a hard time the first time, like, getting through it, I actually listened to half of, or like the majority of this on audiobook. Like, if I had the book, I'd pick it up and read it.
Mhm.
But I mostly listened to the audiobook on Audible, and I, like, that sucked me in, like, so much more. Like, I would listen to it in the shower and be like, oh my god, this is happening, like, during, like, big action scenes and stuff. And I think, like, I don't know, for anybody who hasn't listened to it, I didn't love the narrator, but it was done, like, really well, so you should listen to it.
I totally agree. I listened to the audiobook the last time that I read the series, and I really enjoyed the audiobooks. So I see we're getting a lot of questions on what are our thoughts on Jessamine, because I feel like Jessamine is a very controversial character. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on her when we first meet her?
For a second, I didn't know who you were talking about because I pronounced her name Jessamine. So
Oh yeah. Some people pronounce it. I think Cassie actually pronounces it differently than Jessamine. So I could be wrong in that, but I know that there's a couple of pronunciations of it.
I have no
thought it was
idea. Don't take my word for it. I don't pronounce names correctly, but I get confused so many times. But Jessamine, the first time that I read her, during my first read, I didn't really like her at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this time, when I saw the scene with the parasol, when she so flawless, like seeing her point of view a bit better, because she's in this world and she's forced to be in this world, but maybe she doesn't want to. And I get that more now for some reason. But I think that her character, although she's really rude sometimes and selfish, I think that it's kind of justifiable. I see where she's coming from because she just doesn't want to be here.
I can definitely agree. When I first read the series, I was like really against her because like she was so unhelpful and so selfish and so rude, and I was like, there's nothing likable about her. But definitely rereading, I've realized that like she has a very unique experience, like because up until this point we haven't really met anyone that didn't actually want to be a Shadowhunter. You know, all of the other Shadowhunters that we've met have been super proud to be Shadowhunters, and we meet the one person who hates this lifestyle. So I think that you don't necessarily have to like her, but I think it's important to consider that, you know, this just isn't what she wanted. And although she is acting out and it's kind of annoying, like she's a very unique perspective on the Shadowhunter world.
Right. I was going to say the same thing. I feel like she's very misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because everybody, you know, she is super unhelpful and super selfish. And then, like, a lot of people view her as whiny, and then her, like, views on lifestyle about marrying and what a woman should do and all that are very 18th century. But I feel like it's, like, really interesting to see that because she's so different. And, you know, you don't really think much about the fact that, like, there are some people who just don't want to spend their days fighting demons. She would much rather put on makeup and put on a pretty dress and spend a day with her family. And it's because she was raised that way.
And that's fine, too.
Right. Because her parents weren't really, like, they were born Shadowhunters, but they decided to, I don't remember what the word is, but, like, succeed from the clave.
Yeah.
And so like she was raised not being a Shadowhunter, and then she was like thrown into the
thrown into it.
Like, you need to be a Shadowhunter, like, and I feel like everyone pressured her and nobody listened to what she wanted. Because like Charlotte was always like, you know, you could help, and like she did not want to be a Shadowhunter. She was there because she was under the age of 18 and unmarried.
No, I think that's really important. And I also find it interesting because I feel like in YA, like being traditionally feminine or being girly is very shunned upon. Like, you know, we have the whole I'm not like other girls trope. You know, no girl main protagonist ever wants to wear a dress and they don't wear makeup. And so I think it's interesting to think about the fact that like we now have a character who is like that. And like I think that's somewhat also what might play into the fact that I think a lot of people didn't like Jessamine to start because she's so different than what we normally see in YA because it's all about the I'm not like other girls sort of thing, you know?
Right.
I actually really like her. She's one of my favorite characters.
Is she really?
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's because, like, she's so bitchy, but I, like, love that, like, she's, I mean, not always, of course, like, she has her moments where I'm like, oh, you're just a terrible person. Especially because I don't know what happens next. Like, I haven't read the next two. I'm reading along with the read-along, so I'm on. And it's really weird because I've read TMI, like, 7 times. Like I just like could not pick these up, and I love the Dark Artifices too, so it was really weird that I just could not get into these. But yeah, I really like her. Like the parasol scene is like really like where she was like, yes, I was like, I love you, and I have a parasol. So I was like, wow, I'm gonna like pull mine out right now.
That's so exciting. Yeah, the one thing that really took me aback from Jessamine when I was rereading it is that she has this one comment that it's right before the parasol scene when Tessa and her are walking, and she says, and then there's the boys, Will and Jem. Jem's pleasant enough, but you know how foreigners are, not really trustworthy and basically selfish and lazy. He's always in his room pretending to be ill, refusing to do anything to help out. And I was like, when I read that, I literally felt my jaw open. I was like, that is so horrible and racist and ableist. And I was just so taken aback when reading it because, like, I feel like all of us have this idea of Jessamine. And she was like, well, yeah, she's kind of rude, but, like, she doesn't want this life. And that is, like, I just never picked up on that before, how, like, so terrible that comment is. Like, I feel like most of the stuff she says is, like, very harmless. But that one thing, like, really caught me off guard in this reread. And so because I never remembered reading that in the past, I'm interested to see how that part of her character changes in the future. Like, obviously, like, it's a different time zone. It's a different time period, so we have to take that also into context. But I was like, wow, because I didn't remember that at all when I read it. And I'm interested to see how that transfers in the later books.
Yeah, in this book, she was very and blunt. And that comment just is a great disservice to Jem's awesome character.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of offended by it.
As a Jem stan, I was like, what are you doing? Don't talk bad about my baby. Precious, do not hurt him.
Jem,
I feel like I
doesn't
must have
ever do
listened to that one because I don't remember hearing
Yeah, it's so quickly passed over. And I think that's also indicative of the time period because people used to say stuff like that all the time.
And it was really just passed over. Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty
like
sure
now, like somebody would have been like,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure all Tessa comments on during that, if I remember correctly, is simply the fact that, like, pretending to be ill, and even then it was like in her head because she was thinking, oh no, I saw him like the other night, and like that was it. Like, it didn't even occur to her the foreigners thing, which, like, she's also a foreigner.
Oh, I sort of remember this part now. Okay,
so
oh yeah, that's right, that's correct. So we're also getting like a million questions on Jem and Will.
Yeah.
So again, we're not spoiling the future books.
Okay.
But I'm curious on your thoughts on it as well, because I always was like, Team Will, Team Will, Team Will. I only care about Will. I like hated Jem for the longest time because I just didn't think he was as interesting as Will. And over the years, I've definitely come to love Jem so much more. And I'm so happy about that too, because he's just so sweet and wonderful and kind and just like amazing. Like how in that one scene he basically like almost sort of like sacrifices himself near the end. Like, he's ill but he's still trying to protect Tessa, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't remember exactly which scene it is, but like, I've definitely grown a greater appreciation for Jem over the years, and now I just say that I love her and Greystairs, and that's all.
Yeah, I agree. Except on my first read, I didn't care about Jem at all. I didn't care that he was such a selfless person and so great. I just was focused on Will 100%. But on this reread, like I noticed how harsh and rude Will was to Tessa so many times, so much more. And it was bad. It was quite bad. But I don't hate Will at all. I still ship him with Tessa. But I love Jem so much more. He is a truly pure soul, really nice. He's just amazing, gorgeous, but I do not ship him as in a relationship with Tessa, just as a really close friend.
Maggie, I'm curious how you feel because you like know nothing in the future, so your perspective is so different.
I literally read like 2 chapters of Clockwork Prince like after I read Clockwork Angel the first time, and like I couldn't do it. Like I tried really hard, but I was like really young, so we're not gonna go back there. I actually like I wanted to love Will, and I think that was just because like he was like Jace, so like I wanted him to be like Jace. So like and like I love Jace, so I was like, oh, here we have like another character who's just like Jace. But I honestly think Will is like way more rude than Jace was like ever, like in the way like he's with Tessa and like Jace is with Clary. I love Jem. I loved like how selfless he was and how he always like wanted to help even though he like wasn't always like physically up for it. Right now I like them both. I don't really have like a
preference.
Yeah, or like a ship her with one or the other necessarily. I feel like I need to see like how their relationships go because I feel like Clockwork Angel doesn't like dive as deep as it could into them. So
you're in for a treat in the next one.
Oh God.
So Carrie, how do you feel?
So I hated Will when I first read the books. And I'm gonna like lightly reference something that happened in City of Glass. But like, and I feel like a big part of it was like I really wanted to like him because he's a Herondale, and we just learned so much about the Herondales. And I like hated him with a passion. I really loved him in his first scene when he like saves Tessa, and then after that he just went downhill for me, and I was like, "Who are you? Please go die."
Someone said Jace is snarky, Will is rude.
Yeah.
Jem is my favorite. I think he's so precious. But I'm always like a sucker for the like not classic ships.
Yeah.
Such. So like whereas everybody for the most part is a Will Tessa fan, I'm huge on Jem Tessa, and I tend to root for the underdog characters also, which I feel like even though Jem is a main character of this trilogy, he's like the underdog of the 3. It's the same way like Simon is my favorite character in The Mortal Instruments, and he's just kind of there.
Yeah.
But I definitely like love their friendship, all 3 of theirs in my rereads. Every time I've noticed, like obviously I like Will now. I think he's great. But I love them as friends, and I totally understand the hair and gray stairs thing because it's really hard to pick. And I think that's part of the reason this is probably my favorite love triangle done in YA.
Yeah, I also realized probably most through this reread, but like over my multiple rereads, I definitely started to like chill out with my love for Will because of how rude he is. Like at that scene when Tessa's ready to be like, I really like you, like let's talk about like maybe dating or something, and he's like, well, you'll have to be discreet about it because like obviously we don't have a future together, and he was basically just like, well, you can just sleep with me and that's it. I was like so mad, like consumed by rage, so rude and terrible. Oh my God, I'm like, that's one thing that like I feel like I'll never fully be able to separate from Will's character because it's just it's so cruel.
I mean,
and like there's
yeah, that one pissed me off so much. I actually remembered that scene from reading it the first time. So even when I got to it, I was like, no, not again. Like, I can't do it again.
When I was reading like the recap of the book, because like I haven't finished my reread yet, like I'm on the last 50 pages, so I just recapped myself real quick. When they described that scene, they were like, you know, Will basically calls Tessa a whore.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew he was bad, but I didn't even make that connection really. And I was like, oh, you're not, I just started liking you, please stop.
Yeah, it's like really, really terrible.
I don't think like I could separate that from his character. I mean, like in the future books even.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to make that distinguish because like, not to spoil anything, but like with the things we learn in the future books, it's still really hard to distinguish that one comment.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm curious on how you feel about the other characters. I feel like with Clockwork Angel, the main cast is a little bit more developed in book 1 compared to City of Bones. Like I feel like in City of Bones, we don't care as much about like Alec and Isabel as we do with like Jessamine and Henry and Charlotte. So I feel like there's more characters to talk about with book 1. So I'm curious as to how you guys feel about like all of the other characters. Because I love them all.
Henry.
Henry
is so precious.
Yeah,
he just wants to lock himself in his laboratory and make inventions all day, and like I love him.
I adore him so much.
Yeah, and I love Charlotte too. Like, especially for like the time that the books take place in. Like, she's like such a badass bitch. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, she's just so great for
Shadowhunter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's just like role model material, and she's so young. Like, and like you don't realize that she's so young.
She's like 24.
She's 23.
Oh my god!
I read that today.
I'm almost 23, and I can't. Not like almost, but like I'm 22, and like I can't imagine in a year having all the responsibility that Charlotte has in that time period. Oh my goodness!
I think she's
a superhero,
right? Yeah, I think it's super interesting with her character because when you first meet her, because we don't learn her age until like 200. I definitely thought she was like 35, 40.
Yes, me too.
And I think I feel like that's because with like Robert and I can't ever say the mom's name. Is it Maris?
Maris.
Yeah, Maris. With the Lightwoods, they're older. So like I've just kind of like pictured older people running institutes.
Yeah.
And like she was appointed as the head of institute like when she was young. I can't remember how long she's been looking over the institute, but it's been a few years.
Yeah,
and like she's only 23. And I'm just like, I can't imagine. Like, I mean, I'm 18 and I can't even imagine in 5 years having that much responsibility. I'm like, no. But I think it's really interesting how Cassie did that, how she like led us to believe that she was 40 and then like dropped the bomb that she was like 23. That was a good one. We were all Tessa in that moment when Tessa was like, what?
Yeah.
I love Henry too, but two characters actually that I'm so intrigued about that we unfortunately won't be seeing anymore are Agatha and Thomas.
I was just gonna bring this up. I was like, I always forget they died. Like they're dead.
For some reason, I thought it was just Agatha.
Mm-hmm.
Like I keep forgetting that Thomas.
Oh my gosh!
And then like I read that and I was like,
yeah.
No.
I literally cried. I was like,
you.
No, this is so sad. He could have done so much more.
I know.
When I read this and Thomas died, I'm like, wait, no, but like I like distinctly remember him in the rest of the series. I thought we had so much more of him, and I felt like I was reading the book for the first time. I was like, wait, no,
I was convinced. I was convinced that he was going to have more expansion with Sophie. At some point. That broke my heart when he died. I wasn't expecting it at all. I remembered Agatha dying, but not Thomas.
Mm-hmm. It's such a shame. Thomas was so sweet.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like I feel like the reason I forgot that is because like they are side characters. They're not super important. So like, you love them, but they're not Tessa and Charlotte and all them. Mm-hmm. But then like you read it and you're like, wait, no, this is wrong. This is
it was so abrupt. It was so abrupt when they died too.
Yeah, it's so sad. I really wish we got more of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious on your thoughts on Tessa because
I was about to bring her up.
I never like there are some people that like really don't like Tessa, and it's not that I ever disliked her. I just like didn't love her when I like read it for the first time. She was just like not the most amazing protagonist I had ever read, but I feel like now I just have like a greater appreciation from her. Like I felt like this reread, like I really heard her voice and I really connected with her character more as like this girl who has lost everything and she goes to England thinking like, okay, like maybe I can get over this, like maybe my life's gonna be fine because my brother's gonna take care of me, and then she gets kidnapped and abused for like, what is it, months?
6 weeks.
6 weeks?
6 weeks.
And so like I definitely have had more sympathy for her because I never really took into account her situation until I was like an older reader. And, you know, she like still feels like so on the outskirts of these people too. So I think I've definitely gotten more sympathy and I've connected with her more. And so like, that's why, again, I'm really excited to keep reading this time because I feel so much more of like a relationship with Tessa than like I ever had before.
Yeah,
I think that
like I didn't like her. I think that's why I had a hard time getting into it because like it's from her point of view and like it wasn't what I was expecting, I think. And then during like the reread, like I actually kind of fell in love with Tessa. Like I really like her. Like I feel like she's so like, and I also like when I first read it was like when I wasn't reading as much, like I read much more now. So I feel like I could like connect with her on that level of like loving books as most of you probably do too. But I also think it's really interesting reading like her point of view and learning about the shadow world. Like when she reads the codex and was like going through it and like reading about like the clothes and like, oh my God, women wear pants. Like that, I thought that part was like so funny. Like when Charlotte shows up in her pants and Tessa is like so like shook about it. And she's like, oh my God, you're wearing pants. But like I loved that part of Tessa, like that Tessa was like learning so much and was like taking it like pretty well for like everything she had gone through. So I really like Tessa so far.
Mm-hmm.
I loved how she tricked Mortman in the end when she takes that percent. That scene was the best scene of the entire book, in my opinion. So clever, so clever. Such appreciation for that girl scene. But also, I think that Clary, comparing Clary and Tessa, because they're very different, two very different characters, Clary's like a bit more, she stands out a bit more in my mind than Tessa would. In my first reread, I thought she was a bit more unremarked. But after this time, I thought the same as you did. I fell in love with her much more. I understood where she was coming from. And that scene at the end of the book, how smart it was, I didn't remember it. So it took me by surprise again. It was so good.
That's so good.
I still don't totally connect to Tessa like everyone else in the fandom seems to. You know, everyone, for the most part, raises the Infernal Devices as their favorite. Mm-hmm. It's so much better than TMI, blah, blah, blah. Tessa's like a great character. And like, I love the books and stuff, but I just don't connect to her as much as I do to like, say, Clary. Mm-hmm. But I still really like her. And one of the things I noticed in this reread is like in her progress, not only does she learn more about like, you know, Shadowhunters and stuff, but you can see her slowly becoming like more okay with changes in society. Because, like, the first Tessa we know who freaks out about, you know, Charlotte wearing pants, as you go, like, you kind of see her, like, at first she's like, oh, no, that's not okay. You're like, what are you doing? And then the more she thinks about it, she's like, yeah, like, you know, Charlotte's just like Bodacia. Mm-hmm. Go get them, girl. Oh, and I love that about her, like, seeing her, like, change her, like, view.
Yeah.
Because I almost feel like she's not as blunt about it, but she's very similar to like Jessie in how like they need to react, like they need to get married, they need to let the men do everything. And then as she like goes through the book, she definitely becomes less like that, even if it is mostly like her inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that a lot.
Can we like go back to the scene that Sophie brought up at the end where Tessa just like completely outsmarts Mortman? Because like I forgot that happened, and I'm like, this is so clever and smart. Oh my gosh, this is why like I feel like I think less of the Infernal Devices because I just forget that these awesome things happen, and I think that's such a well written scene. It's so good, it's so good.
It is.
Do you guys have any other like favorite scenes from the book?
Not
I feel like we've discussed the parasol scene, and
we need to discuss the kiss. It's not it's not my favorite scene, but I think it's very important to discuss it because I really do not understand what went down in that scene. And since I don't remember very trilogy ended, I don't know what are his motives, what are Will's motives. But
I think it's hard because
how can he dare to do that to Tessa? That is so manipulative, so wrong in so many levels that made me really angry.
I think it's interesting because we don't know Will's motivations like right at this moment. You know what I mean? Like with it ending at Clockwork Angel, like we just have this view that he like for some reason he like doesn't actually like Tessa, or like why is he treating Tessa this way? Why did he push her away? Why does Sophie hate him so much? It's just like all of these things like we don't know yet.
Yeah, I feel like they're opening up for such character development with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the scene right before like the end when he like says like, oh, you can sleep with me, like we'll never be like a real thing. Like right before that is when like he thinks she died and he is crushed and like he literally is so upset that he like can't speak, and it's horrible for him. So like I feel like they're opening up so much like character development. So like I'm excited to see because I haven't read the next one, so I'm really excited for that.
You can totally see that he likes her, that he feels something for her.
Yeah.
But like he won't pursue it, and why?
Yeah. It brings so many questions. You just are left there wondering, and no answers are given in this book. It's so frustrating by the end. And with that cliffhanger too. I mean, how could you have waited an entire year until the next one came out?
Yeah. And I also think it's interesting because you know, a lot of people are like, oh, like the Infernal Devices is just the same thing as Mortal Instruments, just in a different time period. And it's so not, because,
no, it's not.
you know, or people are like, oh, Will and Jace are the same people. And they're really not, because if you think about it, like with what we're talking about with Will's motivations, we don't know them yet. But in City of Bones, we find out about Jace's childhood, and we find out about the abuse he suffered. So we start, although like, yeah, Jace is like kind of an asshole sometimes, like we understand that at this point, and that develops, but we don't know that about Will yet. And so I just think it's really interesting, like Will is like so beloved from the beginning for so many people, but we also like, we don't totally know him as a character yet. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's why a reason I didn't love it the first time was because like you don't get to know the characters that well. Like even when I read it this time, like there's a large chunk of like waiting for things to like happen, and there's great scenes like in there, but it was still like, so when is like this, because it's like it is like partly a love story, so like you're kind of waiting for the love, like there's this love triangle, what's gonna happen with it. And I thought it was gonna progress more in the book, but it didn't, and I kind of liked that it didn't, like this time reading it, but the first time, yeah, I think that was like what was bugging me so much. But also the scene when they are watching the they can't go into the meeting. I don't remember exactly when it is. And they like watch through the floor. Like they're up above and they watch from the floor. That scene is great. Like when you brought up like scenes, like I think that scene is like really like a good scene between the three of them in this book.
And I want to bring this up too. I love how that parallels to one of the first scenes in City of Bones when Clary and Jace are looking through the bookshelves to watch Luke and Pangborn talking. And then it's the same exact thing. Again, I forgot about this, and it's so clever, and I love it.
That was one of my favorite parts because it paralleled so well to City of Bones. So
right. One of my favorite scenes is I love the party scene when Tessa is pretending to be Camille. It's one of my favorite scenes. I feel like there's so much of it. And Magnus is like, seeing him in this completely different setting is my favorite.
When he lays on the table.
I love Magnus so much.
Only character
I want him to
see in both.
In all the books.
But like, and seeing him react differently to like Camille than he does with like Alec in the Mortal Instruments is so different, because he like truly views them as like completely different relationships. And I feel like people have this, I'm trying to think of what the word is, like stigma for like people who are really old, so like vampires, warlocks in this case, like that eventually all relationships just kind of become the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then but with Magnus, you can really see that he doesn't believe that. And that he genuinely values each relationship as if he's an 18-year-old boy and this is his first love.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Although Magnus is a recurring character in both series, he's so different now too from how we know him in you can tell that there's a lot more experience on TMI Magnus compared to TID because he's older and wiser and has gone through and seen more things. And there is a little bit more, not necessarily innocence, but I feel like that's the only word I can describe it. There's something about him that's not the complete Magnus that we know in TMI, which I think is really interesting.
And I think a lot of it is seeing how he interacts with different characters. There is specifically right here, Tessa, who's so innocent. Magnus makes a comment at one point and she just doesn't understand it, and it's my favorite because then he just doesn't expand on it, whereas I think he would have in the Mortal Instruments, because he's talking about De Quincey and he's he thinks where is it? He thinks we're friends. In fact, I suspect he'd like to be more than friends. And he grinned and Tessa's confused. She doesn't understand what he means. And I feel in the Mortal Instruments, he would have definitely expanded on that thought, but he could tell that Tessa had no idea what he was doing. So he was so anyways.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't pick up on that. Let's see what other
people are asking about the Lightwoods.
Oh yeah, the Lightwood brothers. How do you guys feel about Gideon and Gabriel?
I don't know yet. They're annoying in this book, but I feel I need to read the other ones to find out more about them.
That's it. My feelings change depending on the book. So
yes, for sure.
And I feel that I'm pretty sure it's with most people, just getting the vibe from other people. I don't spoil things for myself, but just seeing comments, some people love them, some people hate them the whole time where it changes.
Yeah, I really like the sort of rivalry between Will and Gabriel about Tatiana. I just think it's so funny that Will, I don't remember if in Clockwork Angel if he says that anything happened or not. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I love that he just keeps teasing him about it because he knows it sets him off, and it's just so funny to me. He says mean stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning what he's saying, but I just love how he constantly riles up Gabriel when Gabriel is being an ass to him as well. I just think their dynamic is really funny.
Yes, I love the first scene where we meet Gabriel because it's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's Will's not 18. He's not a true Shadowhunter me.
Yeah. And Will's
they're in the Enclave meeting, and they're all listening through the floor. And Charlotte's Will's gonna go with Tessa, pretend to be Camille's human subjugate or whatever, and Gabriel's it should be me, I'm 18, I'm better than him.
Yeah, it's really funny.
And it's my favorite because he's just he's acting like a spoiled little boy who got refused a toy.
It's so funny. I love it.
It's my favorite.
I feel we just don't know Gideon as well in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say
there's so much. Yeah, there's so much left to know about him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I enjoy him because of the next couple books, but you're right. In the first book, we really don't see much of him.
Exactly. That's why it's hard to make a full judgment on him. I feel it's easier to get a vibe about Gabriel based on book one and his interactions with Will, but Gideon's sort of a true mystery from book one.
Yeah, I have no idea about him, but he's just kind of a stuck-up little kid is what he's
Yeah,
I have to say, I love how different Gabriel and Gideon are from Alec, Isabel, and Max.
Isabel,
I like Alex and Max's name.
They're so funny
because while Will and Jace are very different, they also are very similar.
Yeah.
And with their family connections. But then these Lightwoods are so much different than the ones that we know because of the Mortal Instruments.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm wondering, we got a good question about how did you react about Jim and the Yin Fan?
I just saw that.
How do you guys feel about what's going on with Jen?
Really?
At first I was like, yeah, I was like really, I didn't know how to feel about it because I thought he was gonna have like some sort of like actual like human like disease, like something that he needed to take it for, and like that was their answer to it. Like back in those days, like that's what I was thinking the whole time. Like, okay, maybe he has like diabetes and this is like insulin, because that would kind of make sense with the symptoms. Sorry, I'm in nursing school too, so it was like, I'm gonna
you were trying to diagnose him.
Yeah, I was like, I'm really trying to figure this out. And then when it got to like the story about what happened and like why he really needed it, I was like, so like, it brought me down so much. I like wanted to cry. I was like, this poor baby. And I feel like that like brings out like the innocence in him more, because you're like, he really has no control over his life, and like it's horrible to think about.
Yeah, I think it's great that Cassie like has the guts to talk about like addiction, which is like not a thing in
YA
the 1800s, the YA books in general, and also in the time period. Like, you know, like Jessamine says, like, oh, he's lazy and he's pretending to be sick. So like she does address the stigma that comes with it, but it's also not even just you know, how we talk about like addiction in our world today, but also because he was tortured and his whole family was tortured as a result of it. And, you know, he literally has had no control over anything that has happened to him across his life because of this one terrible, terrible instance. And it's really sad. It's like, it's so sad to think about.
Yeah.
You know
and then
what I
how
mean?
he talks about like the like opium trades between like Asia and Europe, like that's never that was like a history lesson. Like,
I know, right?
I totally forgot that happened. Like, haven't taken a history class like that in a while, but
I know. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's like really a thing. Like that actually happens, and I feel like that like was a good point. And I feel like that she was making that point specifically because to like lead us on that like yin fen is like something that's not like a medicine. Like it's it's a drug.
It's so interesting and just like so heartbreaking.
Right. And going back to like how he handles his addiction too, like he handles it really well, I think, because he still tries so hard to be a Shadowhunter. And like on a personal level, if this happened to me because of like a demon, I don't think I would want to spend my days like fighting more demons. I think I don't think I do that, but he does it. He's like, oh no, this is what I meant to do. But like, I just don't think I could have that mentality personally.
Yeah, he just like, he doesn't let it stop him from doing anything. He wants, not even that he wants to show other people he's capable, but he wants to show himself that he's capable and that he's not going to let this one thing hinder him.
Otherwise, the demon wins.
Exactly. And it's like his whole life is ruined because of it, but he wants to live the most normal life that he can with this obstacle in his way. And so I really like your point about him coping well with it, because it really does seem like, although it's horrible and like I can't imagine being in a situation, like he does seem to have a fulfilling life around it. And I think that's a really important thing.
In other words, he's just trying so hard not to let it bring him down, because if you let it affect you that much, he just doesn't want to let it affect him, because he would not be able to live happily the rest of the time that he's got. So he's just trying to make the out of it, and that's really valuable.
I totally agree.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was something like diabetes, because I was like, it's such like I have family, like a couple of my cousins have diabetes, like type 1, and like they've had it since they were little, and that's something that like you can't let like rule your world. So that's why I was thinking that with Jem, because I was like, okay, so he takes his medicine every day, like, or when he needs to, like this is something like he lives with, not like that it's still hindering him, but he's living with it. And that's why like when it came time to like say what it really was, I was like so like, oh my god about it, because I was not expecting it.
That's so ridiculous. Yeah. Let's see what other questions we have. What do you guys think of the clockwork creatures?
Oh, they're so creepy.
They're so creepy.
So creepy.
So
listening to it on audiobook changed like my view on that, because when they describe it, it's so like more creepy to hear somebody else talk about like what they look like and like when the skin is peeled away.
Oh my god.
Like that was
The scene when they went into the house. The scene when they went into the house back to Mrs. Stark's and Stark's sister's house when they found Miranda there. That was so creepy. And then when Miranda, like, she repeated the same words, the same sentences. It's weird. Those creatures are really weird because they seem like they can't think. They have some sentences. They have some phrases that they can say. They can talk pretty well. But at the same time, they just have no brains. They're not real people. But they can't. It goes beyond being a robot. It's like weird how they are controlled. But that's maybe magic because of the magic aspect of it. But they're certainly super creepy. And when Cassie described a figure with bulging eyes, you just think, oh, they're robots, they're clockwork creatures, and it was creepy. It's a creepy feature to have, the bulging eyes.
Yeah, I feel like for a long time I didn't have like a huge conception on what they looked like. I thought they looked so much more like clockwork and robotic, and like I feel like the first time I read the books I didn't realize that they were supposed to look so human, to the point where Tessa like didn't know immediately when she first met them that they were clockwork. Like she was so shocked when she found out. So that really changed my perspective, because now like I feel like they do look human, but there's something off about them. And like that's just like creepy, because there is like this phenomenon where like humans reject things that look human but aren't. That's why like so many people are creeped out by that whatever the robot's name is, you know?
Oh, like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's creepy.
Yeah, like the robot that got like social media famous. Like everyone's creeped out by it because she looks human, but like not totally. And so that's why it's so weird to like envision that, because I feel like we don't have a lot of things to go off of from experience. So like we have to just like make them up in our head. But it's so creepy. And there's so many of them. Like the one scene where they're just like all coming over the door. I'm like, oh my god! I feel like I totally underestimated them the first times that I read the books, and I just like didn't get it at first.
The creepiest parts to me, like, you know, the clockwork is very creepy too, but like it's how much they had to have like killed normal humans to make them.
Oh,
because they have real hearts and like skin. And that terrifies me. Like the thought of like the fact that they like looked at somebody and they were like, oh, I need your skin. So I'm just going to like, I think of like, there's a scene in The Office. I don't know if you guys like know what I'm talking about, where like Dwight like skins the face of like a mannequin and then puts it on. And like, that's all I can picture. And it like creeps me out.
Yeah. I definitely feel like they've gotten more creepy over the years. It's really, really creepy. How do you guys?
Nathan.
Yeah, I was just about to say, how do you guys feel about Nathan?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh my god,
all their persons.
I knew when I started reading the books when the first book when she said that the note that the Dark Sisters gave her had her nickname that Nathan always called her. Like afterwards, she realized that Nathan wasn't actually in the house, that he wasn't being kept, that it was all a deceived plan, that she had been deceived by the Dark Sisters. And so I thought, well, but who told the Dark Sisters that Nathan called Tessa Tessie? Who told them that she had that nickname? And I suspected him from the start after realizing that. And then when we met him, I trusted him. I trusted him again. And then he stabbed everybody in the back, and I just hated him double, even more than I could have before, because he was so deceiving, so bad. And how could you have betrayed your sister like that? It's just terrible.
That's interesting, because like I did not suspect him. Like I definitely believed the Dark Sisters thing, where like that they made him sit down and write a note, and they were like, you know, you need to include things that are personal so that she believes it. And so I remember like when we first, you know, actually met him, I was so happy that Tessa had saved him. And then when like Jessamine started like going crazy over him, I was like, this could be really cute. And then he like stabs everyone in the back, and it was like, oh.
Yeah, I also like never imagined that Nate would be like involved in it. Like, yeah, I really wasn't like a critical reader when I first read these books, and I was like, oh, like, you know, I just take the stories it's given to me. So it was a really big shock for me when I first read this. I never suspected Nate. And I think it's just so good because like we really do start to feel sympathy for him. Like when we meet him, like he really is about to be murdered by the person we think is the Magister. So it's like, how could you not sort of think that he's innocent in all of this?
Right.
And also like I started to like ship Nate and Jessamine, and I was like, oh, like this could be cute, and like this could be like, you know, Jessamine's introduced to Tessa's family, and like they're gonna get connected, and then it's just like he ruined everything. So I also like I never expected it. And it was really, really shocking for me, and I hate Nate so much. He's the worst.
Obviously, Cassie has a thing with brothers.
Yes.
And their relationships with their sisters. And so I feel like after reading City of Glass, I maybe should have suspected him.
That's a really
But
good point.
I mean, I guess she has a thing with that double agent brother card.
Cassie just loves writing dysfunctional families.
I feel like when they're like Nate is staying in the institute with them, and like he is being like so babied by Jessamine, and I feel like I kind of suspected him in, like when he was in the house, because he was kind of shady in the house or in the institute. Like he was like like Loki like wasn't like totally forthcoming, and I feel like I don't know, like I got a sense for that. Like he wasn't telling Tessa everything that like he could have, and he wasn't like I have a brother, so I don't know if it's that, and I realize every relationship is different, but like I feel like after all that time of not seeing her and like being captured and almost killed, like he would have had like more time with her, like in a sense that like he would want something like that he has known for his like I would want, like if my brother was the first like I saw, like yeah, I'd want to be like side by side with him all the time, and he really didn't care about that. Like he was just a little shady, he was a little off, so I was always like, and then all the like how he was so naive back in New York, and he lost all their money all the time and then owed debts all the time, and like yeah, it sucks that he had like a gambling addiction, but like that also was just like, it's not like he went to Europe and lost that. He knew like there was still something there, so
I can totally understand that too.
He's a little shady.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, so we have this other question. Obviously, both Tessa and Clare get introduced in the world, and we learn about the world with them, but do you feel it was done so that neither was boring? And personally, I always feel like Cassie did a really good job with, like, the world not feeling like it was being introduced to us through, like, info dumps. Like, I always thought that the conversations that gave us information about the world were really well done. But because I read the Mortal Instruments first, and like that's how I knew the Shadowhunter world, I feel like I can never tell if Clockwork Angel does a good job introducing us to the Shadowhunter world. Like
I can tell because I did read them before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did not think I didn't understand much. Like, for example, the difference between conclave and enclave, I was just lost at that. That was like a detail that confused me a lot, and it was missing a bit of information that I really was able to grasp when reading the City of Bones. So I think that I would recommend reading the Mortal Instruments before, or at least the first book in the Mortal Instruments before jumping into Clockwork Angel, because it was like it went more smoothly, so that you weren't as info dumped, but some aspects were like missing a bit more of development, so that I could understand what the world, this huge world that has so many aspects, so many things going on about it, it was just lacking a bit, so that I could fully understand it.
Yeah, I feel like the world building in the Infernal Devices series isn't as strong as the world building in the Mortal Entrance, even though like they both need to be at the same level, because we're like, you know, if the reader is going to pick up Clockwork Angel first, like it's got to be as on point as it is in City of Bones. Like I was always like, okay, like that's definitely a weakness of the book, that it's like not as strong. But I also always like, whenever anyone's like, oh, like which should I read first, I'm always like, you should probably read the Mortal Instruments, because I think the world building is a little bit better.
Well, and then speaking on like how she did it, how she like world built in each one, they're very different. So like you don't get bored.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clare is just fully immersed in everything.
Yeah.
You know, she gets to go to Idris. She gets to like meet a bunch of Shadowhunters and all that. Whereas a lot of us learning through Tessa is she read the Codex.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that like little bit of it because I felt like we were getting a history lesson, but it wasn't as like much where we felt like Clary, where we were just kind of like flailing and it was like, what is this person? Who's an inquisitor? I don't understand. Like Tessa was like, I'm going to read this book and learn all about you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was a different way of introducing the world, right, to people who have, and it was good.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I also thought this one was a little like at being from America and like on the East Coast. Like I've been to New York like quite a few times. Like I know you live there, Emma, but
yeah,
like it's a lot easier. Even like with the Dark Artifices. Like I don't know, for me it was a lot easier to like picture like even LA, and I've never been to California, but like a lot easier to picture like literal places, like when in TMI, like I can like see like all of the scenes, and I feel like I don't know if it's just because it was like London or what, or if it was because it was in the 18th century. It was really hard for me to like picture things, except like when they were in like when Jessie and Tessa are in the park, like I could really picture that, and I feel like that's just because I was thinking like, oh, it's a park, like it's like a park, or like on the bridge, like that's easy to picture. Like there was some things like being in the Institute I feel like was easier to picture, but places like around town were like a little harder for me to visualize.
One of the things I had a hardest time picturing with all of that is the weather, is because it's supposed to be always raining in London, and they were like, oh wow, what a pretty day. And like I'm from like southeast US, so it's always really sunny here and rain's really gross here. And so like when her and Jessie are out at the park, you know, she makes a comment like, wow, what a lovely day, and Tessa's like, it's raining. And I was like, yeah, I can't picture a lovely rainy day. I mean, like I like rain, but I like it when I'm inside.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessie was like, wow, what a great day to walk out in. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, see, my boyfriend's from England, so I get it a little bit more because, like, someone in my life is very close to me that has understood that weather. But yeah, I agree. I feel like just for me personally, like, historical fiction is, like, not my thing. Like, it's one of the last genres that I go to pick up. And so I feel like the setting is always a little bit harder for me to pick up on because also like there's so many things in the world that like we don't have, like there's no electricity and like there's no cars. There were so many times while reading this that I was like, well, why don't they just drive? And I'm like, so it's so hard. It's really, really hard. So many times, like just drive. It just was so hard.
The atmosphere of this book in particular always stood out to me a lot. I didn't remember many of the things about the plot, but I did remember perfectly was how the atmosphere, the environment felt to me when I read it for the first time, and this time as well.
I thought you froze for a second. Yes, I think it's definitely a different atmosphere. I'm curious, this is like the holy grail question in between the Clockwork, the Infernal Devices series and the Mortal Instruments series. Would you rather live in the New York Institute or the London Institute?
Definitely the New York.
London Institute.
I don't know. I feel like because it's like such like I want to go to London so bad, but it depends on what London Institute you're talking about. Because if it's
That's
like
true.
Nowadays modern London Institute, I'd probably say that one.
Yeah.
But for like TMI time, like it'd be New York.
My thing is, you get the sense that the London Institute is like much bigger than the New York one.
Yes.
Because she gets lost like super easily her first night there. And like, I just don't think I can handle that. I don't take well to getting lost. I'd be like freaking out. And I feel like that's probably not a good fit for me.
I feel the opposite. Like getting lost because the place is so big, that would be such an adventure. So cool. But also, I think like for example, New York City, it's a city, it's very crowded. London to me a bit more peace, even though like the traffic was described like it was very dense. But the weather too, it was raining all the time. That's the type of weather that I love the most. So better much for me, the London Institute.
Yeah, I feel like I have to pick New York. Not like just because I'm a New Yorker, but I just, I don't know. There's just something about the New York Institute. But then like you think about how the London Institute is supposed to have these like amazing Christmas parties. And I'm like, well, maybe I'd like want to go there for Christmas vacation. I feel like I have to choose the
And I split the year.
Okay, so I think we're gonna start wrapping up. So if anyone has any last minute questions, I say ask them now. But one thing that I think would be cool to talk about to like end off is Tessa's necklace. Because number one, we're still only in book one. So like we don't, again, it's sort of like we like don't know what this necklace means. But I just always forget that scene where it like flies out the window.
It flew off her neck and like got her like free from one of the clockwork figures. And
it's like, what is awesome. That?
Like, and then it came back to her. I was not expecting it to come back when it like flew back to the window and went back to her. I was like, okay, how did it know that?
I feel like we were very foretold on that there was something about it though, because like, you know, first of all, it's made of clockwork. Second of all, the book's called Clockwork Angel.
Yeah.
And then like there is a scene in the very beginning of the book where Henry's like
takes it, yeah.
He's like, Tessa, like you gotta let me have it. And she's like no.
And then he's like, something is strange about that.
Right. Like he was talking about how it was like really rusted and it shouldn't have been working.
Yeah.
But like I feel like those are things you don't pick up until you're rereading too.
Yeah, rereading I definitely picked up on the fact that like, why is this necklace still ticking? Like it probably, for as long as Tessa has had it, like it probably shouldn't be working. And then it flew, and I'm like, what is it? I don't get it. And I feel like the first time I read it, I did not pay as much attention to the necklace. Like I was just like so focused on the characters. But it really is like, what is like, it just.
But it was also her mother's.
Yeah, so it's like, how does that connect to her family too?
Yes, I love
that. Really interesting. I love it. Do you guys have any like last minute thoughts or other things that you wanted to discuss before we sign off?
I was so happy that Church came in this one.
Oh my God, Church baby!
Like we found out where and it was great. It was honestly like one of my favorite parts. I was like, yes, I love that cat. He's my favorite.
Yeah, and I forgot they found him in this book too.
Yeah,
like, I always knew that Church like went across both series, but I forgot that they just like found him and brought him home. It's like,
well, there's like scooped him up and he was like, "You're mine."
It was really cute.
I feel like Jem is like the biggest cat lover because he just like he saw that cat and he was like, yeah, that's gonna have to take you home.
So
that's literally my family.
That's who I am. Like I see my dad just I'm like,
my dad just found a cat a couple months ago and it's orange, but it has like golden eyes, like literally gold. And I was like, okay, so we gotta name it Jace. Like but that's
my mom names the stray birds in our area Jeff, Tessa, and Will. And so, like, every few nights, she'll be like, Tessa was out there waiting for you. And I'm like, great, Mom. She's like, I haven't seen Will in a little bit. I hope he's okay. Like, I hope so.
That's just so adorable.
Yeah.
And also, as a last thought, Tessa's power. Who are her parents?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like,
what is she?
I never realized until this live show how many things are unanswered in this book.
Right?
Yes.
It's so strange reading them because I'm like, I know all these answers, but then thinking back to like only reading up to this point, I'm like, wow, we know nothing. Like there's
That's why I'm like was so frustrated. I think the first time too, because like there was nothing. Like there was so many unanswered questions. Which is why, like, I'm trying to get through Fallen Angel so fast so that I can get to the next one.
It's me.
Yeah.
As a last point, like, I just kind of want to know, like, who do you guys picture when you're reading? Because we don't have any visual representation.
I have something about that. I found out that there's this guy. I know who the model of the original US covers is. He's called Danny Schwartz. Danny Schwartz, yes, and he looks exactly how I picture Will. And he's so handsome, so cute.
I've looked him up.
Perfect.
Yeah, he's cute.
Yeah. I don't have any like great like fan cast or anything. Like I really only have like people for like 2 characters. But for me, I'm a huge Vampire Diaries fan. I mean, I'm wearing Elena's necklace. So like I really picture Nina as Tessa. And I'm not quite sure what it is, like Nina Dobrev. I'm not sure what it is about her, if it's just that like we have footage of her wearing 18th century clothing. But I really picture her. And then for Jessamine, like she's supposed to have like really pretty blonde hair, right? Like
Yeah.
I thought I remember that right. I picture Yale Grobglass from Jane the Virgin.
Oh,
I don't know what it is about her, but like I just feel like their personalities match super well also. Those are the only 2 that I really have like distinct pictures for when I'm reading.
Yeah, it's hard for me to fully like, because I don't do fan casts. I'm like, I don't know enough models and actresses for me to give them each a character. But it's hard for me to describe them because in my head I'm like, that's Will. That's Jessamine. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's who the character is. Like, you know?
I think that funner for me gets closer to how I picture people.
I like
also
Cassie's,
I was reading
pictures that she posts, like drawings.
Yeah,
those are very pretty.
I was reading the illustrated Shadowhunters with all of the characters.
Yeah,
and this
I'm
is
like, that's
how
them. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like exactly, that's them. Like I don't have a person for it. It's just them.
Yeah, they captured so well. I will say, definitely the first time I read this book, I completely whitewashed Jem, and I'm like still mad at myself for it.
I did too.
And now that I'm reading it, I like make the conscious like I definitely have made more of like a conscious effort to like put it in my head that like Jem is half Asian. You know
I pictured that like from the first time I read it, like I always have him as like half Asian because I think it's so cool, like with his hair and his eyes that he's like the colors that he's Asian. Like I think that brings like such a cool like characteristic to like what he looks like.
I also totally went over that he was Asian. I just realized it on this reread, but I think that what threw me off so bad was that my editions, the ones that I read, hid his face and showed his bright hair. So I totally thought that he was really pale and white and didn't notice at all that he was actually Asian. So when I read it this time, I was surprised. But yeah, it was just different from what I had pictured.
I'm a very visual person and I do a lot of like fan fiction stuff online. And so like a lot of people will pick like actors and stuff. And I remember like I was picking one for Jem one time and it was like a few years ago and I picked like the most white character and I can't remember who it was. And somebody like messaged me and they were like, you know, he's half Asian, right? And I was like, he is? How did I miss that? And like now every time I reread it, I'm like, how did you ever miss this like prime component of this character? Because like, I don't think it ever dawned on me. Like, you know, I was like, I know he's from China.
Yeah. And it's so important, like in the books, but it's unfortunate that like so many of us have like passed over it in reading. You know what I mean?
I'm really disappointed in like past Carrie for doing.
I know. Get so mad at myself.
Like, get it together, girl. Only reference like every 2 pages.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
I think it passed over because I was 2 years younger, so I didn't fully I wasn't able to absorb every single detail about the characters, so more things than I think I did when I was younger. So I'm noticing more things about books that I'm rereading, and that's incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really awesome to reread books that you read when you were younger because you get like such a different perspective, like reading it.
Yeah, that's even my thing with TMI right now because I haven't read them since like senior year. So it's been like a good almost 3 years and it's just weird.
I feel like every time I reread TMI, I pick up like new things.
So many different
things. For sure.
Like I remember, I think it was like the fourth time I reread TMI, I realized that like Bat is in the first book.
Yeah, he's the DJ.
He's the DJ in the very first chapter, and I like it took me so long to like make the connection that like this is the same character.
It's so weird. It's so weird. All right, I feel
Last
like
one.
that. Oh yeah, go for it. What's up?
Everyone is dying to know this, but which
Hogwarts
house?
houses. Yeah, I was gonna say we should end with it.
Okay, well, I'm with the Hogwarts houses. So Tessa.
I
feel
see
like
her as a Ravenclaw.
You
I was
guys
gonna say, she's
know them
such a
so much
Ravenclaw.
more than me, though. So, but yeah, she's definitely a Ravenclaw.
Oh yeah, I feel like she would be a Ravenclaw. Okay, Will.
Can he be like
A Slytherin.
a Slytherin?
Yes, Slither exactly.
Slytherin.
I see Slytherin because he's definitely got the more cunning aspects, but he's also very
Yes.
brave.
Yes.
And I feel like so you can be like a Slytherin and be brave. Like I'm a Gryffindor, like through and through. But like my mom is very much a Slytherin in the best way possible.
Yeah, I feel like he would. I feel like.
But I feel
Slytherin.
like he's definitely Slytherin.
What do you
Yeah.
guys think about Jem?
I think he's a little
through and
Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say Hufflepuff or
Yeah.
Gryffindor.
Yeah, Hufflepuff. I feel like Gryffindor a lot too, though, because he is like so brave. Like, especially that scene where he's like practically on the ground and can't move in Clockwork
Exactly.
Angel, and he's still fighting. Like that is some Neville right there.
Yes.
That is cutting
Yeah.
Nagini's head off.
What
But
do
it's
you
also
guys?
such a great friend
Yeah,
and so selfless,
absolutely. I totally agree.
very loyal, and he always has such great reflections about what friendship means. With Will, his bond with Will, it's very particular bond,
So
very particular
sweet.
friendship. So
Mhm.
sweet.
What about Jessamine?
I feel like she's a lot harder to place because, like, you know,
Yeah.
when you have the typical like Slytherin thing, your first like inclination is to put her in that just because
I
of
feel
who
like she's
her personality is.
Slytherin.
And I think that's when you're going into the like, for example, like I've only read Harry Potter once, and it was very recently. So like I remember the first like couple books, I definitely had the like mentality that like Slytherins are evil,
Yeah.
and they're not. They're so not. And I realized that as I read more. But like, so like that's always my first inclination with her. But I feel like she's just so much harder to place.
I actually just saw the play like a couple of days, like
Oh my
weeks
goodness.
ago.
I wanna see it so
bad. But I feel like that opened my eyes up to like
The
Slytherin a little more.
Yeah.
So I feel like she could definitely go in Slytherin, like easily. Like, of course, that's not like she's very much a Slytherin, but I feel like she might be like she could be Gryffindor too. Like, she could be one of those like
Right.
How she wielded that parasol, definitely.
I was gonna say with the parasol.
yeah, the
scene,
parasol, like
definitely
it was
very
pretty.
unique.
It was pretty Gryffindor-y.
I feel like she's like, I don't know what she would be like technically, but I feel like she's very secret Gryffindor. Like she doesn't want anyone to know. But
yeah,
then,
exactly.
you know, her and
Like, she
Tessa were
wouldn't
in that park
answer
alone, and she was like, "Tessa can't save me. I guess I'm gonna have to save the day."
Yeah.
She's very rude in this book,
She's
but
like,
I still kind of pick Slytherin. I feel like there's more to her
Right.
that she's
Yeah.
not showing in this book.
she would have
I feel
asked
like
the hat for Slytherin, but like really, she'd be like, the hat would be like, I think you're Gryffindor.
what do you guys? I think Henry is a Hufflepuff through.
Oh, Henry's
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
He's like a Hufflepuff. Like I feel like he has Ravenclaw tendencies because of how much he
Yeah,
wants
'cause
to
he's
understand
so
how things
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remind
But
me of
he's definitely a Hufflepuff. I just
He's
feel
a
like
Huffleclaw.
yes.
yeah.
Or
He's
Ravenclaw.
a lot like Luna, and like how he's just kind of like quirky and like nobody
Yeah.
really gets him. but
Yeah.
And
he's also
Charlotte.
so loyal.
What
I
house
feel
is
like
Charlotte's
Gryffindor?
totally a Gryffindor.
Yeah.
There's
She
no
takes
denying
so
that.
much for being an 18th century like woman of power.
Yeah.
It's so great. Any more characters that we can place? Or I mean, I feel like Nate's a Slytherin.
What about
Right.
Sophie? We didn't talk about Sophie at all.
Oh my god,
Nate's
my
not a
baby
Nate's
Sophie.
I love
a Death
Sophie.
Eater.
She's so great.
I love
Yeah,
Sophie.
Sophie's probably a Gryffindor, honestly.
Yeah, I think she'd also
Yeah.
be a Gryffindor because we also like we don't get so much development on her. Like we hear about her past, which again is so passed over. Like I feel like no one ever talks about Sophie, but I also feel like she is more of a Gryffindor because she's endured so much with what she went through in her past, and she's still here.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, can I end with one of my
Yeah.
favorite quotes?
Yes.
The right man won't care.
What is that from again?
Yeah.
At the end, Jam says to Tessa that the right man won't care.
Oh yeah, I forgot
that
about
part.
that. That was
Um,
super
That was so
I'm gonna
sweet.
say
That
mine
was so
too.
sweet.
This was
Go
actually
for
my
it.
senior quote, like in the yearbook.
Oh my
senior
goodness, I
quote
love it.
Will be there forever. So it's there's plenty of sense in nonsense sometimes if you wish to look for it. And like I just loved that one. Like it was
It
my
was so
favorite.
sweet.
And I didn't. It was like I probably would have mind because like those were my books in high school. Like used to get yelled at in class for reading them. But then I was like, of even hating the book, that was my line. Like I loved that
it's
line.
so good.
And then, of course, there's the iconic Infernal Devices line of one must always be afraid of what's in books, for they have the power to change us. Emma has it tattooed on her. Don't
Yes.
you?
That one is very relevant to all of us.
Yeah.
Did Emma freeze?
I think so.
Okay.
It's
Well,
frozen on the live
um,
chat too, so dun, dun, dun.
none of us can end it either.
Magnus,
we'll
what
just
house
talk.
is Magnus in?
Well,
What house
What
do you
was
think
that?
Magnus is in?
who?
Magnus? Oh my god.
Oh
I
my
can't
God.
even place him in a house. Like
He's on all four of them. Oh, Emma's back.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. I was like, no, please don't tell me that it's all frozen.
It's okay. We continued. We placed
Okay.
well, we didn't place Magnus.
Oh my
Dying.
goodness.
We couldn't place him in a house.
I feel like we did this in another I feel like we tried to do this in another live show too.
He's like all four of them, I
I
feel.
know, he's so tough to place. I feel like I would also maybe lean towards Ravenclaw though.
That's
Yeah, I can see that.
I feel like that's the one that I would lean towards. All right, well, I think that concludes this live show. So thank you so much to Carrie, Maggie, and Sophie for joining me, and thank you so much to all of you guys who were watching and participating. I loved seeing your discussion in the comments. So basically, our next live show will be happening in a couple of weeks, and we're going back to the Mortal Instruments series. We'll be reading City of Fallen Angels, and I'm super, super excited. But thank you guys so much for participating in this live show. Definitely go check out Sophie and Carrie and Maggie in the description of this video. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you soon to discuss City of Fallen Angels. Bye!
Bye!
Bye.